Picture this. A 62-year-old man sits in his broken-down car outside a restaurant in Kentucky. His white suit is wrinkled, his string tie is crooked. His hands shake slightly as he opens a cooler containing 11 herbs and spices. He's about to walk into his next restaurant. Legend has it that he's been rejected over 1,000 times. His recipe has been called too spicy, too weird, unmarketable, and impossible to sell. Most people would have quit after 10 rejections, after 50, after 100. But this man, he's just getting started. His name is Harland Sanders. The world would come to know him as Colonel Sanders. And what you're about to discover is how he built KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, one of the world's largest restaurant chains, starting from nothing but a recipe and an unbreakable will. According to legend, he heard 1,009 no's before he heard his first yes. Whether that exact number is true or not doesn't matter. What matters is that he refused to quit when everyone else would have given up. This isn't just a story about fried chicken. It's a story about the most underestimated force in human achievement: persistence. Napoleon Hill studied over 500 successful people and discovered that persistence is the secret ingredient that separates those who dream from those who achieve. And no one embodied this principle more powerfully than the man who turned rejection into a billion-dollar empire. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Hill called persistence the sustained effort necessary to induce faith. You'll learn the exact mental framework that kept Sanders going when everyone else would have given up. And most importantly, you'll discover how to apply this same unstoppable force in your own life. Because success isn't about getting lucky. It's about outlasting everyone who quits too soon. This is the story of persistence. This is the story of Colonel Sanders and KFC. And this is the story of how hearing no 1,009 times can be the foundation of saying yes to greatness.
Harland David Sanders was born September 9, 1890, in Henryville, Indiana. His father died when he was 6 years old, leaving his mother to raise 3 children alone. By age 7, he was cooking meals for his family. By 10, he was working on a nearby farm. By 12, he had dropped out of school to work full-time. Most people would call this a tragic childhood, but Sanders would later say it was the greatest education he ever received, because he learned something that no classroom could teach: how to survive. "I learned to cook out of necessity," he once said, "but I learned to fight out of stubbornness." And fight he did. He was kicked out of the Army after just 3 months. He was fired from multiple jobs. He tried and failed at dozens of different careers: streetcar conductor, railroad fireman, insurance salesman, steamboat pilot, justice of the peace, and even a brief stint as a lawyer. Every failure taught him something. Every rejection made him stronger. Every closed door forced him to find another way. But it was cooking that kept calling him back. At age 40, Sanders opened a small restaurant inside a gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. It wasn't much, just a single room with a few tables and a kitchen, but it was his. And that's where everything changed. He began experimenting with fried chicken. Not just any fried chicken, but chicken prepared with a secret blend of 11 herbs and spices. He perfected a pressure frying method that cooked the chicken faster and kept it crispier than anything else on the market. People started driving from miles away just to taste Sanders' chicken. The little gas station restaurant became famous throughout Kentucky. By 1950, he had built a successful business and was named an honorary Kentucky colonel by the state governor. But then disaster struck. In 1955, Interstate 75 was built, bypassing Corbin completely. Overnight, his restaurant traffic disappeared. The business he had spent 15 years building was finished. Sanders was over 60 years old. He had $105 in Social Security benefits. He was broke, tired, and seemingly out of options. Most people would have retired, accepted defeat, called it a life well lived. But Sanders wasn't most people. He had learned something that Napoleon Hill would later identify as the core of all achievement. Most great people have attained their greatest success just one step beyond their greatest failure. Sanders was about to take that step. He looked at his situation and saw not an ending, but a beginning. He had something valuable, a recipe that people loved. He had something powerful, the knowledge of how to make it. And he had something unstoppable, the refusal to quit. "I was too old to work and too poor to retire," he later said, "so I decided to franchise my recipe." But here's what makes Sanders' story remarkable. He didn't just decide to franchise his recipe. He decided to personally visit every restaurant owner in America if that's what it took. He loaded his 1946 Ford with a cooker, seasonings, and enough determination to move mountains. His plan was simple: walk into restaurants, cook his chicken for the owner, and if they liked it, offer them a franchise deal. The deal was this: Sanders would give him his secret recipe and method. In return, they would pay him a nickel for every piece of chicken they sold. It sounded reasonable, it sounded fair, it sounded like something any smart restaurant owner would jump at. But Sanders was about to discover something that would test every fiber of his being. The world isn't interested in what you have to offer until you prove you won't take no for an answer. Because what happened next would have broken most people's spirit completely. They said no. Not once, not twice, but over and over and over again. "Your chicken is too spicy. We already have a chicken recipe. Franchising will never work. You're too old. Come back when you're younger. This is a fad." Rejection after rejection, day after day, week after week, month after month. But Sanders kept going, because he had learned something that Napoleon Hill calls the secret of persistence. It's not about avoiding rejection, it's about outlasting it.
Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying successful people, and one thing became crystal clear. The difference between success and failure isn't talent, luck, or connections. It's persistence. Hill wrote, "Persistence is to the character of man as carbon is to steel." But Hill discovered something even more profound. Persistence isn't just about stubbornness, it's about a specific mental framework that transforms obstacles into opportunities. Hill identified 8 factors that make up what he called the persistence consciousness. Factor 1: definiteness of purpose. Sanders didn't just want to do something with his recipe, he had a crystal clear vision: franchise his chicken recipe to restaurant owners across America. Specific, definite, measurable. Hill discovered that vague desires create weak persistence, but definite purposes create unstoppable persistence. Factor 2: desire. Sanders wasn't just trying to make money, he was fighting for his survival. At 62, with $105 to his name, failure wasn't an option. It was a death sentence. Hill wrote, "Weak desire brings weak results, just as a small fire makes a small amount of heat." Sanders' desire wasn't small. It was a blazing inferno. Factor 3: self-reliance. Sanders had learned through decades of failure that he couldn't depend on anyone else, not employers, not partners, not luck, only himself. Hill discovered that self-reliance creates what he called the persistence habit, the automatic response to keep going when others quit. Factor 4: definiteness of plans. Sanders didn't just hope restaurants would accept his recipe, he had a system. Demonstrate the cooking method, let them taste the result, explain the business model, and close the deal. Hill found that successful people don't just persist randomly, they persist systematically.
Factor 5, accurate knowledge. Sanders knew his chicken was better than anything else on the market. He had 15 years of proof. Customers who drove miles just to taste it. Lines out the door, repeat business. Hill discovered that knowledge creates confidence, and confidence creates persistence. Factor 6, cooperation. Although Sanders was rejected over and over, he kept refining his approach. He learned from each rejection. He adapted his pitch. He improved his demonstration. Hill called this intelligent persistence, the ability to persist while learning. Factor 7, willpower. This is where Sanders was different from everyone else. He didn't just want to succeed. He had decided to succeed. And there's a massive difference. Hill wrote, "There is a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it." Sanders was ready, completely, irrevocably. Factor 8, habit. Sanders turned persistence into a daily ritual. Every morning, he would pack his car. Every day, he would visit restaurants. Every evening, he would plan the next day's route. Hill discovered that persistence becomes unstoppable when it becomes automatic. But here's where Hill's research becomes revolutionary. He found that most people quit just before they're about to succeed. He called this the failure consciousness, the mental state where people convince themselves that continued effort is futile. He studied hundreds of cases where people quit, only to see someone else succeed with the same idea in the same market, sometimes within weeks. The difference? The person who succeeded simply persisted longer. Sanders was about to prove this principle in the most dramatic way possible. Because by rejection number 500, most people would have given up. By rejection number 750, even the most determined would have questioned their sanity. But Sanders kept going. Why? Because he understood something that Hill discovered in his research. Every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. Each rejection wasn't just a no. It was education, it was refinement, it was preparation for the yes that was coming. Hill wrote, "Before success comes in any man's life, he is sure to meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure." But here's the key word: temporary. Sanders understood that rejection is temporary, but quitting is permanent. And that understanding was about to transform not just his life, but the entire restaurant industry. Because persistence isn't just about not giving up. It's about getting up one more time than you're knocked down. And Sanders was about to get up for the legendary 1010th time. Let me paint you a picture of what persistence actually looks like in the real world. It's 1955. Sanders is driving his 1946 Ford through the back roads of America. The car is old, unreliable, and loaded with cooking equipment. The white suit he wears is the only decent clothes he owns. He wakes up in cheap motels or sometimes sleeps in his car. He eats at diners and truck stops. He counts every penny because he doesn't have many. But every morning, he gets up, he puts on that white suit, he ties that string tie, and he drives to the next restaurant. The routine is always the same. Park outside, take a deep breath, grab his cooker and seasonings, walk in with confidence he doesn't always feel. "Good morning, I'm Colonel Sanders, and I've got the best chicken recipe in America. If you give me 30 minutes, I'll cook it for you right here, right now. If you don't think it's the best chicken you've ever tasted, I'll walk out and you'll never see me again." And then, the rejection. "We're too busy. We already have a chicken supplier. We're not interested in franchising. You're wasting our time." But Sanders doesn't argue. He doesn't get angry.
He doesn't make excuses. He says, "Thank you for your time," packs up his equipment, and drives to the next restaurant. And the next one. And the next one. Rejection number 100. Rejection number 200. Rejection number 500. By this point, his friends and family are begging him to quit. "You're over 60 years old, Harland. You've tried hard enough. Maybe it's time to accept that this isn't going to work." But Sanders can't accept it because he knows something they don't know. He knows his chicken is better. He knows his system works. He knows that somewhere out there is a restaurant owner who will say yes. Hill wrote about this phenomenon. The majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. But Sanders wasn't the majority. He was the exception. Rejection number 750. Rejection number 900. Rejection number 1,000. By this now, according to legend, Sanders has been on the road for over 2 years. He's driven thousands of miles. He's cooked chicken in hundreds of restaurants. He's heard every possible reason why his idea won't work. But he's also learned something invaluable. He's gotten better. His pitch is sharper. His demonstration is faster. His confidence is unshakable. Not because he's avoiding rejection, but because he's mastered it. Hill discovered this pattern in every successful person he studied. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Sanders had fed his mind a daily diet of rejection. And instead of becoming discouraged, he had become unstoppable. Because here's what Hill understood about persistence. It's not about being tough enough to handle rejection. It's about being smart enough to learn from it. Every no had taught Sanders something. This owner was concerned about cost. That owner worried about quality control. This one needed more profit margin. That one wanted exclusive territory rights. By rejection number 1,000, Sanders wasn't just pitching a recipe. He was solving problems. He was offering solutions. He was becoming the partner these restaurant owners didn't know they needed. But even more importantly, he was becoming the man who deserved to succeed. Hill wrote, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit." Sanders had collected over 1,000 seeds of equivalent benefit. He had learned from over 1,000 failures. He had been refined by over 1,000 rejections. He was ready. And then in 1952, at Pete Harmon's restaurant in Salt Lake City, Utah, it happened. The owner tasted the chicken, his eyes lit up, he took another bite, then another. "This is incredible," he said. "This is the best chicken I've ever tasted. How do we get started?" After what legend says was 1,009 rejections, Sanders had his first yes. But here's what's remarkable. Sanders didn't celebrate. He didn't call it a miracle. He didn't act surprised. He simply said, "I knew you'd like it. Now, let me show you how to make it." Because persistence had taught him something that Hill calls the faith consciousness, the absolute certainty that success is inevitable. Sanders didn't get lucky on attempt number 1,010. He got what he had been preparing for through attempts 1 through 1,009. The rejection hadn't been punishment. It had been preparation. And that preparation was about to pay off in ways Sanders had never imagined.
That first yes with Pete Harmon in Salt Lake City wasn't the end of Sanders' story. It was the beginning of the most explosive phase of his life. Because here's what Hill discovered about persistence. Once you break through, the breakthrough accelerates. The starting point of all achievement is desire, Hill wrote. But the finishing point is persistence, backed by a burning desire to see that desire through to its logical conclusion. Sanders had reached his finishing point, and everything changed. Pete Harmon's restaurant became incredibly successful with Sanders chicken. Word spread to other restaurant owners. They wanted the recipe too. But now Sanders wasn't walking into restaurants as a desperate old man with a cooker. He was walking in as a proven success with a track record. The second yes came within weeks, then the third, then the fourth. By 1960, Sanders had 400 franchised restaurants. By 1963, he had 600. The white suit and string tie had become his trademark. The finger-lickin' good slogan had become part of American culture. But here's the most remarkable part. Sanders was now 73 years old. At an age when most people are enjoying retirement, he was building a global empire. And it all started with his refusal to accept what legend calls rejection number 1009. Hill wrote, "Victory is always possible for the person who refuses to stop fighting." Sanders had refused to stop fighting, and victory had become inevitable. In 1964, Sanders sold Kentucky Fried Chicken to a group of investors for $2 million plus a lifetime salary and continued involvement in the company. But even more than the money, Sanders had achieved something priceless. He had proven that persistence works. He had taken an idea that over 1,000 people had rejected and turned it into one of the most recognizable brands in the world. He had started with nothing but a recipe and a refusal to quit, and built a business that would eventually serve millions of customers every day. But perhaps most importantly, he had demonstrated something that Hill spent 20 years trying to prove. The majority of people meet with failure because of their lack of persistence in creating new plans to take the place of those which fail. Sanders had persisted through what legend said was 1,009 failed attempts, but he had also created 1,009 new approaches. He had learned from every rejection. He had refined his pitch with every failure. By the time he reached attempt number 1,010, he wasn't the same man who had started the journey. He was better, stronger, more skilled, more confident. He had become the man who deserved to succeed. Hill discovered this pattern in every successful person he studied. Persistence is the direct result of habit. The mind absorbs and becomes a part of the daily experiences upon which it feeds. Sanders had fed his mind a daily diet of persistence, and his mind had become persistently successful. But here's what makes Sanders' story so powerful. He didn't just succeed for himself. He created a system that allowed thousands of other people to succeed too. Every KFC franchise owner became successful because Sanders had been persistent. Every employee got a job because Sanders had refused to quit. Every customer got to enjoy great chicken because Sanders had outlasted legendary 1,009 rejections. Persistence isn't just about personal success. It's about creating value for others. And that's exactly what Sanders had done. By the time he died in 1980, Kentucky Fried Chicken had become a global phenomenon. There were over 6,000 restaurants in 48 countries. The company was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But Sanders' greatest achievement wasn't the money or the fame. It was the proof that persistence works. He had shown the world that age doesn't matter, that background doesn't matter, that education doesn't matter. What matters is the willingness to get up one more time than you're knocked down. What matters is the refusal to accept that the last no is the final no.
What matters is the understanding that persistence isn't just about not giving up. It's about getting better with every attempt. Legend says Sanders heard 1,009 no's, but he also learned 1,009 lessons, and those lessons had made him unstoppable.
You may not be trying to franchise a chicken recipe, but you are facing something that requires persistence. A dream that seems impossible, a goal that feels out of reach, a vision that others say will never work. Let me give you the exact blueprint that Sanders used, the same mental framework that turned what legend calls 1,009 rejections into a billion-dollar empire. Step 1. Define your definite purpose. Sanders didn't just want to do something with his recipe. He had a crystal-clear vision. Franchise his chicken recipe to restaurant owners across America. Your persistence will only be as strong as your purpose is clear. Don't say, "I want to be successful." Say, "I will build a $1 million business by December 31st, 2027. Don't say, "I want to lose weight." Say, "I will weigh 150 pounds by June 1st, 2026. Don't say, "I want to write a book." Say, "I will publish a 200-page novel by March 15th, 2026. Specificity creates persistence. Vague goals create weak efforts. Step 2. Develop your persistence consciousness. Hill discovered that persistent people think differently than others. They don't see rejection as judgment, they see it as information. Sanders didn't think, "They rejected me because my idea is bad." He thought, "They rejected me because I haven't found the right approach yet." Every no became data. Every rejection became education. Every failure became preparation. Start tracking your rejections. What did you learn? How can you improve? What will you do differently next time? Transform rejection from punishment into preparation. Step 3. Create your persistence ritual. Sanders had a routine. Pack the car, visit restaurants, demonstrate the recipe, handle the rejection, move to the next restaurant. You need a routine too. Something you do every day, regardless of how you feel. If you're building a business, make 10 sales calls every day. If you're looking for a job, apply to 5 positions every day. If you're writing a book, write 500 words every day. Persistence isn't about occasional massive efforts, it's about consistent daily actions. Step 4. Build your persistence support system. Hill discovered that persistent people surround themselves with reminders of their purpose. Sanders carried pictures of successful franchisees. He kept testimonials from satisfied customers. He surrounded himself with evidence that his system worked. Create your own evidence file. Collect success stories. Read biographies of persistent people. Surround yourself with proof that persistence pays off. Step 5. Master the persistence mindset. This is the most important step. You must develop what Hill calls the persistence consciousness. Most people think, "I'll try this until it doesn't work." Persistent people think, "I'll try this until it works." The difference is profound. The first mindset is looking for reasons to quit. The second is looking for ways to succeed. Sanders didn't approach restaurant number 1010 hoping it would work. He approached it knowing it would work eventually. Your rejections aren't evidence that you should quit, they're evidence that you're getting closer to breakthrough. Step 6. Understand the persistence timeline. Hill discovered that most people quit just before they're about to succeed. He wrote, "Before success comes in any man's life, he is sure to meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure." Legend says Sanders was rejected 1,009 times, but he understood that each rejection was bringing him closer to yes. Your rejections aren't evidence that you should quit, they're evidence that you're getting closer to breakthrough. Step 7. Develop persistence habits. Hill found that persistent people don't rely on motivation, they rely on habits. Sanders didn't wake up every morning and decide to visit restaurants. He woke up every morning and visited restaurants. It wasn't a decision. It was a habit. Make your persistence automatic. Don't think about it. Just do it. Step 8. Embrace the persistence paradox. Here's what Hill discovered. The more you persist, the easier persistence becomes. Sanders found that rejection number 1009 was easier to handle than rejection number 9. Why? Because persistence is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Your first rejection will hurt. Your 100th rejection will teach you. Your 1000th rejection will prepare you for success. Remember, Sanders didn't succeed despite legendary 1009 rejections. He succeeded because of those 1009 rejections. Each no made him better. Each rejection made him stronger. Each failure made him more prepared for success. And that's the secret of persistence. It's not about avoiding failure. It's about using failure as fuel for success.
If Sanders' story stirred something in you, if you felt that familiar fire of unrealized potential, don't just watch and walk away. Your legendary 1010th attempt is waiting for you. Your breakthrough is on the other side of your persistence. Your success is hidden behind the rejections you haven't collected yet. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years proving that persistence is the secret ingredient in all achievement. Sanders spent years proving that what legend calls 1009 rejections can lead to billion-dollar success. You have the same power, the same potential, the same opportunity. The only question is, will you persist long enough to claim it? Stand up right now. Look at whatever challenge you're facing, and make the same decision Sanders made at age 62. I will not quit. I will not give up. I will persist until I succeed. Then come back here. Like this video if it changed how you think about rejection. Subscribe to our channel and join a community of people who understand that persistence isn't just about not giving up, it's about getting better with every attempt. Hit that notification bell because we're diving deeper into Napoleon Hill's principles with real stories of people who use them to achieve the impossible. Your homework is simple. Find your legendary 1010th attempt. Define your definite purpose. Create your persistence ritual and start collecting your rejections. Because rejections aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones. And champions? Champions collect enough stepping stones to build a bridge to success. Just like the 62-year-old man who refused to accept that what legend calls 1009 no's meant his dream was over. He knew something the world didn't know yet. Number 1010 was just around the corner, and it was going to change everything.